the idea around the proficient offenses of today and the old adage that defense wins championships. Can you just be an elite team and go deep in the playoffs? Can you just be an elite offensive team and win a championship? Because offenses are so good now. I mean, I've got the data here. I've been working on this, for a few days. The offensive rating across the league in terms of best, worst, average just keeps climbing and climbing. And so I think to a degree, you have to be able to score, especially in the half court. And you still have to be able to defend. And so I think there's a couple ways to look at this. But what are your sort of general thoughts about today's NBA, the offensive efficiency off the charts, and how that translates to potentially winning it all?
So here's the thing. You clearly have to be a great offensive team to win it all. Now, your defense isn't going to carry the day, and you're just an average to above average offensive team, because you have to get to like certain numbers. The way that the game is set up, the number of threes taken, just the sheer proficiency and raw data say you're going to have to get to a certain number. So defensively then, what do you have to be? I don't necessarily think anymore that you have to be like a team that we look at and watch through data and through the eye test and say, that's an elite defensive team. That's a great defensive team. They have a chance to win it because of that defense. Because I don't think the defenses in general have the level of impact on these great offenses that they used to. So can you be porous defensively and win a championship? No, I don't think you can be. Can you be adequate and be able to ramp it up like when you need to for a stretch in a game? It's important. We have to be connected right here for the next 4 minutes to get this win in a big spot in a playoff series. So adequate and above, and then be able to like dial it up when you need to. You have to at least be that in addition to being a great offensive team. I think that combination, but the notion that you have to be like this team that's suffocating and just locked down and shut you down defensively, I just don't think you need to have that to win a championship now.
I have a point I want to make on that, but I want to go back to something you just said. Defenses don't have the impact they used to on offenses. Why is that? And I don't think it's one reason. I think it's a number of reasons.
Okay.
Why is that?
First reason I would say, and this conversation comes up and it always falls into the, older school mentality, new school mentality.
Let's be reasonable.
Let's be flat out honest here.
Yeah.
There are more highly skilled shot makers in the league than there ever been by a mile. Look at the guys on these rosters, up and down the roster, that have added a handle, that have added a slide step three, a step back three, a catch and shoot three. There are just more shot makers on rosters. And so the floor spread, the spacing's different. More guys are taking shots that they can make from distance. And so as a result, like you can't funnel the ball to as many places defensively and end up in the hands of a non-scorer, which really helps your defense out, right? That used to be the case. There were guys on the floor that served a specific role on the other end to guard people and were a liability offensively. You have far fewer of those in the NBA than you've ever had. Even those guys now that you identify and say, that's a defensive-minded player. He's on this roster mainly because of what he can do defensively. Those dudes are making shots now at a higher level than ever. So defensively, you can't really game plan to try to force the ball in certain places. You're going to be okay because there's too many guys on the court that have too much skill as shot makers. For me, that would be the first reason I would list as to why defenses have less of an impact now.
Okay. I'm glad you went there. And I think it's important because one of the things that I've been talking a lot about with different people, and I brought it up on the broadcast the other day when Austin Reeves hit a step back three at the end of a shot clock. Primary ball handlers and primary scorers now having the ability to make threes off the dribble, and not just in pick and roll, but in isolation at an efficient clip. Call it 35% or more. That's good offense in the half court, right? That's 1.05 points per possession in a half court. I'm living with that. So that, to me, is a big part of all of this. Whether it's Luka, Tatum, Tyrese Haliburton, who, we're going to get into him in a second, but, going into that Lakers game for the IST championship, number 1 in the league in effective field goal percentage on shooting jump shots off the dribble. Like that, to me, is his vision's great. He's been great finishing. He's been great on drives. Obviously, teams are now forcing him left. We'll get into that in a second. But that, to me, is what has unlocked this level of stardom or superstardom, whatever you want to call it. I said superstar, but whatever. That, to me, is important in all of this. That Trey Young and Jaylen Brunson and all these guys can make threes off the bounce and not just in pick and roll.
It's a great point, because now there's even less ability to stop it, right? Because you're not, it used to be if you had guys that were really dangerous in that way, catch and shoot threes, whatever, like, you go face guard, you go play high side, you try to prevent them from getting in the first place. These guys are coming up the floor with it. They already have it.
Yeah.
Right? And they're going to be a threat from pretty much anywhere on the floor, either as an ISO, step back, or any brush screen, ball screen, and they get any space. The range that they have, how deadly they are. Combined with, we talk about pace all the time. Here's another reason I think defenses have less of an impact. Early shots are more accepted by NBA teams as part of their strategy and what they're looking for. So you've now taken, it used to be like that first 8-10 seconds sometimes was more valued. Right, exactly. Pounding it up there, get guys organized. Now we're going to go run our action. That's not the case anymore. Now, it's not only advanced quicker, whoever gets it with any daylight whatsoever has the freedom to go ahead and take that shot. So it just puts more pressure on you defensively in the first place to be super connected. Running back, cross matches are a problem. Miscommunications are a problem because the ball's going to be advanced to a guy that can make a shot and has the license to take it, and the freedom and the confidence of his coaching staff and his teammates to go ahead and let that thing go. So I think that also makes it more difficult for defenses to really have that impact. Now, look, you still have teams that you watch sometimes and go, man, they are really getting after it right now. Minnesota's at the top of the list for me right now, and watching them. Boston at times can really look that way. And some of the teams that we're talking about, Denver, can look that way sometimes. But in general, I'm not watching games and going, man, how are they going to operate against this defense? And it's the defense suffocating.
Yeah.
You don't feel that as much. Because even the top defensive teams, JJ, like, you're still going to see like a 40-point quarter against them.
Right.
Right. And
there's some shot variancy to the amount of 3-pointers taken, right?
That's a big part of it.
Yeah, for sure. You're gonna have those sort of anomaly games, I like to call them. But you bring up Minnesota, by the way. One thing with them, outside of Conley, they're starting 5 positional size, and when they bring Alexander Walker off the bench, positional size. So they have positional size at nearly every position, depending on the lineup. And I'm going to get into some lineup stuff in a second, but I want to stay on this for a second because you brought up something, and I think this is important too. Having the non-scorer, the non-skilled player on the court, which used to exist even when I played.
Absolutely.
And I remember there would be games where if you're I'm not going to name the players, but I can think of 2 off the top of my head.
I know who you're talking about.
If you're guarding this guy,
right,
you are essentially in help on every pick and roll. It doesn't matter where he is. You're taking the roller. If the ball goes into the post or so-and-so is ISO'd, you're doubling. You're just going. You're doubling. And there's no rotation to the non-scorer. You get back to him. We did that in a playoff series.
Oh, yeah.
We did that in a playoff series for 7 games. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So, like, those they're few and far between. They're few and far between.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
And on that point, look, I think this is one of the reasons that Golden State struggled against the Lakers and why their starting 5 is struggling this year. To a degree, I think you can't play, and Draymond has shot well this year, but let's call him for what he has been for most of his career. He's a non-shooter, right? Not a high-volume guy. Not going to shoot a high percentage. He shot it well this year. So you're playing 2 non-shooters in that lineup. Well, if Wiggins can't make a 3, now you're playing 3 non-shooters.
And Clay's struggling.
Well, he's picked it up the last 3 games. But yes. So, but you can't have lineups out there that are playing that way. So that's one thing. The other part about this is analytics. And I remember the first time I heard any of this analytics stuff was the very first meeting we had with Stan Van Gundy. This was 07, 08. his first year there. First meeting before training camp, he comes in and he breaks down, this is what a free throw is worth, this is what a layup is worth, and this is what a three is worth. And specifically, he's like, this is what a corner three is worth. The drive in analytics is a tremendous factor in all of this. That, hey, guess what? We're not going to have Tony Allen spotting up at 15 feet and shooting 3 of those a game.
Right.
Because that's not an efficient shot.
Or whoever was in the 2-guard spot for Oklahoma City for all those years.
Right.
They'd put somebody in that spot just like that.
Yeah.
Didn't have to worry about.
So it's like, I think the amount, you brought up the brother Scott, I think the amount of two-way players that can spot, they don't have to necessarily be on-ball players, but they can spot and make a decent clip from 3. The proficiency and the intelligence now, not only of spacing, but also cutting around spacing. I think teams do a great job right now of cutting, of recognizing when there's 2 on the ball, and then here's our cut game, basically. Teams are good at that. So I think analytics has driven this. I was looking this up the other day. So free throw rates are down across the board, league-wide. Players have never shot less free throws per game than at any other time in the modern NBA. Going back to 1980.
Correlation to the increase in three-point shooting.
100%. Here's the crazy part. Drives are up by about 50%. Now, we only have tracking data since 2013, right, for that sort of thing. Second spectrum, synergy, all that stuff. We only have drive data since 2013. But in the last 10 years, drives are up 50%, yet we're shooting less free throws. Now, some of that, I think, is bigs are smarter at the rim with verticality. Some of that is you drive to then kick for a 3.
Right.
Some of that is all that.
The intent of the drive now is more to kick than anything.
But we are getting shots at the rim, and we're getting 3s. We're taking less mid-range. So I think the analytics play a factor in this. The rules play a factor.
Sure.
Right?
I didn't go there first.
No, the rules play a factor.
You thought I was going to go there first, didn't you?
No. I would say this for anyone who wants, and I've told you this, and we can argue about this all day. For anyone who wants to go watch go watch a full film, go watch a full game from the 80s, go watch a full game from the 90s, watch a game today. The play itself, I don't know that there's this big disparity between physicality. Were there more hard fouls? 100%. Were there teams, certain teams, like I went and watched 2 of the 6 games from the 93 Bulls-Knicks series. Hey, that Knicks team was physical. Like, they were physical. You can watch it. It's physical. I also watched that Phoenix Suns series as a kid, and I've rewatched every game in that series. That Phoenix Suns team was not physical with the Bulls. They got wherever they want. Jordan at the rim, Tom Chambers in the restricted area, no verticality, lay it in. Like, so my point is, today's rules do favor the offensive player.
Sure.
100%. Yet teams are smarter about not fouling. So we're not getting that efficiency piece in it. I think your first point is the real reason. I really do. I think analytics play a role. I think spacing, I think having no non-shooters on the court play a role. But as a sort of add-on to no non-shooters, guys are more skilled. They're just across the board, on average, more skilled.
So all that being said, it gets back to the original question. When you are now sitting courtside calling games, when you're just watching games at home, do you find it, because I do, less frequently are you watching games where you're like, man, they're really getting after it right now. Like, they're really locking into these guys and affecting them. I just feel like I see it less.
With certain teams, I see it more.
Okay.
With certain teams, I see it less. Like Grizzlies at full strength last year, I saw it. I've done a number of Knicks games when Mitchell Robinson's in the lineup. I see it.
Okay.
I see it.
Yeah.
There's a physicality. There's the grabbing off the ball. There's all that stuff. It happens. To my original question, there's 2 things I wanted to bring up. Let's look at the last 5 years. Okay. Denver had the number 5 offense in the regular season, the number 15 defense. But they were a top 10 defense from December 1st through March 1st. They were the number 4 most efficient defense in the playoffs last year. So they proved that they could at least be adequate, if not better than adequate. Golden State, when they won in 22, number 16 offense in the regular season, but the number 2 defense. Bucks, number 5, number 9. Lakers, number 11 offense, but the number 3 defense. Raptors in 19, top 5 in both, number 5 in both. If you go back to 2000, every single champion has either been a top 5 team in either defense or offense, or twice a top 10 team in both. And that was Dallas in 11, number 9, number 8, and 06 Miami, number 7, number 10. So why do we bring these ratings up? Because they do matter when we're talking about contenders. They do matter.
Yeah.
But I look at the last point I want to make on this. I think about this. Do you have a lineup that can get stops?
Yeah.
You brought up the 4-minute thing, like
right.
where you got to lock in and get
That's
a stop.
kind of what I was referencing.
Yeah.
Can you
do
go
you have
to
a
that?
lineup?
Yeah.
And so, I looked at this Milwaukee with their starters in Beasley, 109 defensive rating, not bad for today, 16.3 net rating. They're killing it. Philly's lineup with Batum, Melton, Maxey, Harris, and Embiid, 34 net rating, plus 34. They have a 101 defensive lineup. Spectacular. The Kings starters, 13.3 net rating, 105.8 defense. Boston, who we're going to get into in a little bit, 19.6 net rating with their starting lineup, 100.7 defensive rating. Spectacular. The Bulls have a great lineup with Kobe White, Patrick Williams, and DeSomo, and DeRozan and Williams. Phoenix's lineup also has a great lineup with Durant, Gordon, Nurkic, Booker, Allen, although they've only played 7 games together, so it's a little bit different. And then the Clippers starting lineup. That's the other one that really stood out to me. 16.5 net rating, 105.9 defensive rating. They're 12-3 since they went to that starting lineup with Westbrook off and Terrence Mann in. So that stuff to me matters. These were all the teams that had a 5-man lineup with 100 or more minutes and a plus 10 or better net rating. The one I didn't include in this is Indy because it's a Ponzi scheme. They have a lineup with a 17.7 net rating, but their defensive rating on that is 116.7. So I don't believe in that in the playoffs.
Yeah, I know. I think all that data, backs up what we're saying initially, which is you better have a lineup that can compete and affect for stretches, and certainly important stretches, tight games, right? You have to be able to guard. Overall, though, we'd view, I think, fewer teams now as having a defensive identity. Like that's what differentiates them, because we're so enamored with what these teams are doing offensively and these numbers that are being put up like every single night. A slate of games last night, he's pulled up because 8 teams get to 130. It's like it happens all the time now. So and I felt like before this era of what offense looks like in the NBA, I felt like it was more often you could look at a team and say, that's their identity going into a game. And for the next 48 minutes, you're going to expect to see certain things defensively, and usually at the sacrifice of some things offensively because of the personnel you had on the court. We're specializing in defense. That's not the case anymore, man. These guys now that are some of your top defenders, they're also capable of getting you 15 to 20 at least, right? And you can't leave them to that extent. So I just feel like the tone and tenor that these teams take and the way we break them down when we're watching them, fewer teams have that. But yet the teams that will be left standing at the end will be able to put teams on the floor that can really get after you defensively for stretches when you have to have it.
I left out one 5-man lineup that has a positive of 10 or more, and that's Denver's starting lineup. And shockingly, they have a defensive rating of 112.3, which isn't great. But again, they're scoring nearly 125 points per 100 possessions. I'm not sure it matters.
Right.
I'm not sure it matters with that lineup.